I could mention it, but I won't.
Well, I want to welcome everyone here to Paradigm Shift. Transformational teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Yeah, it sounds too much like New Age kind of stuff. We don't need that.
We're going to look at the ancient texts,
Yes.
but through the prism of a modern leader, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I want to begin by telling you a story about Nathan and Leah. Probably heard about them, not them in particular, a couple just like them. They've been married for a number of years, and now they're going through a little bit of a hiccup in their marriage. Things aren't going too well. Leah's upset that Nathan doesn't answer his phone when he's at work the whole day. He'll tell you to just pick it up for 2 minutes to say hi. And Nathan's upset at Leah that she's overly critical of him and is always nagging him. And so, what does a couple do when they're faced with these types of dilemmas? They go to a marriage counselor, and they're sitting there, and each one is telling over their unique, their own grievances and issues that they're having with the other one. And now it's the marriage counselor's turn to talk. And the marriage counselor basically has two general approaches to how to tackle the situation. The first approach is the way that we normally deal with a lot of the issues that come up in our life. Localized fixes. You know, would it really hurt your bottom line if you picked up the phone for 2 minutes, and can it be a little bit more compromising over here, and maybe you could do this in a more courteous type of way. But this marriage counselor is different. He doesn't want to help them deal with the individual pieces of their failing marriage. He realizes that they have a certain paradigm of what marriage is. Maybe it's from what they saw in the movies, or something that they saw in their parents' marriage, or so they have a certain idea of marriage, and that idea of marriage is just not working for them. And so what the marriage counselor can do is teach them a new paradigm in marriage, a new dimension about what marriage is. And then with that new paradigm, all the other little issues work themselves out. So that's what this course is aiming to do with our spiritual lives. You could read books, the top 10 habits of highly successful people, and find localized fixes to how to deal with, this issue and that issue and this piece of depression, or this thing that's holding me back. Or we could take a step back and redefine our existence. See the world in a whole new light, different perspective. That's called the paradigm shift. Kind of borrowed from the scientific use of the word, where they would use certain experiments to prove different scientific concepts. And then along comes a new scientist and comes up with a whole new theory of how the world works. And then all of their previous experiments and hypotheses, it's all kind of irrelevant because it was all done under a certain assumption of how the world works. And you have a whole new understanding of how the living earth works, then you have to do different types of experiments and different types of things in order to come up with solutions to the problems now. So that's what we are aiming to do with this course in a spiritual sense, to revisit some of our very definitions of life, and then be able to experience life itself with a refreshing paradigm shift.
Yes, I do have a paradigm. Primary oxymoron, happy marriage. Shall we continue?
There we go. So we're going to go through, over these 6 weeks, a number of different concepts. The first one that we're doing today is seeing a beautiful garden. Then we're going to redefine who we are and realizing our potential, eliminating the divide between materialistic life and our spirituality, really redefining what the Torah is as a blueprint of creation. So that redefines our the way that we look at the world and the way that things can potentially oppose our divine mission. We're going to talk about syncing with divine, redefining failure itself, and finally opening our eyes and seeing the world in a whole new light. So, seeing a beautiful garden. There's a story of a young boy who was in a summer camp back in 1957, and someone overheard a conversation between him and his father. His father came for visiting day at camp, and the boy was all excited. You know, just last week, the Lubavitcher Rebbe came and visited our camp and addressed us, the kids. It was very rare for the Rebbe to leave 770, to leave New York. When they asked him to go the next year, he said, I'm still catching up. Meaning just that one day missed time, he was trying to fit every minute in. But he did go to Parksville, New York, and address the kids. And the father asked him, so what did the Rebbe tell you? What do you, why is he said, the Rebbe told me that Mashiach is coming. And the father was taken aback a little bit, almost offended. He said, you know, I've been telling you that for years. Yeah, but the Rebbe really means it. You know, on the one hand, this course will focus on topics and ideas that were explained by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. But one of the reasons why I find this class so moving and so personal is because when I would open up the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I wasn't necessarily inspired by the geniosity behind this theory or this complex idea, the way he tied these conflicting Talmudic passages together in a brilliant way, but with the passion and realism that the Rebbe spoke of these things. And when the Rebbe talked about a certain concept, it wasn't just a great idea. You know, I didn't move out to Humboldt County and start a Chabad center because I was amazed by how profound the Rebbe's teachings are. The Rebbe's teachings are very profound, but it was that every time I go and I learn a sikha of the Rebbe, I get into the Rebbe's teachings, I feel like I'm getting in touch with reality, getting in touch with who I really am and with what the world really is. You know, we can have a certain idea of what Judaism is about or what the world really is. When I learned the Rebbe's Torah, I'm just talking personally, like an introduction generally to these 6 weeks, it's something that's so powerful because of the way that they're portrayed. You can tell, like the boy in the story, the Rebbe really means it. And so in this paradigm shift that we are going through, it's not just a matter of picking up some great ideas or insights or whatever, but getting in touch with ourselves and getting in touch with the true reality around us. So I want to start with a little exercise on page 2. Let's open up to page 2. You have a pen. I'm going to go through these exercises and circle, don't worry about the numbers on the right-hand side, just on the left-hand side. For each one of these scenarios, circle most by the comment that would be most likely your response, and least by which one of these 5 options would be the least likely one of your responses. So the first one, your child is not conforming to the classroom rules and also instigates other children to disrupt the class. What is your reaction? Don't think too much into it. It's not what's the right answer or what would be the best response. It's about getting to know ourselves a little bit. So what would be your natural response to this type of thing? Every child has the ups and downs. Is that your most likely response? Least likely response? I'm not a good parent. I wish he was like his sister. She's got a lot of energy. It needs to be channeled. Kids are not well mannered as they used to be. leadership qualities. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer. Just circle which one of these 6 options would be your most likely response, and which one of these 6 would be your least likely response. And then move on to the next one. Somebody comes and opens up a business within a mile of your own. How do you feel about it? Back in the days when you're really running, hustling.
Oh, is it talking personally or people in general?
Personally, the way you would respond. And remember, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of doing this exercise so that way, when we go through the course, it's us involved in the learning process and not just not just hearing about what everybody else is going through.
Unless I was in Hebrew school.
Okay.
But in otherwise school, I'd be like 4 or 5. But I was in Hebrew school, I'm the number 1.
Yeah.
Very different.
Ken, what do you say? If you were approaching your 70th birthday.
I lost something here.
The number C on learning exercise 1.
No.
What would be your most likely response? Older is wiser. My best years are behind me. I'm unable to be productive anymore. I need to retire. I look forward to many more happy years. The younger generation doesn't get it. Ken, which one would you say? Most likely response. Which one would you never say?
I'm getting lost here.
Is it confusing, this exercise?
It's all the same question of the child walking to the classroom.
So yeah, now we're doing C. Everybody finish?
We don't have to engage the numbers if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right. Yeah, the idea is just to pick 2 on for each one of the 3 A, B, and C's.
Oh,
Like which one would be your most, or whatever, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
Like out of all of them, which one would be your most likely response and which one would be your least likely response? Or whatever, it doesn't matter.
I look forward to more happy years. Living the dream.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
And then afterwards, when you go home tonight, you can look at each sentence individually and decide which one would be least optimistic in circle 1, and which one would be most optimistic in circle 5, and then see your natural responses to things to get a general idea of who we are. There are 2 general temperaments amongst people. Some people are very optimistic, and some people are very pessimistic. Right? This course is this exercise that we just did kind of helps us find ourselves. And usually we find ourselves somewhere along the spectrum between optimism and pessimism. Now, when I talk about optimism and pessimism, I'm not really talking about what we think the forecast of the future will be. Like, do I feel like I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow versus I feel like there's a big tragedy on the horizon, but it's more of a way of viewing reality, the past, present, and the future as well. Do we look at it in a pessimistic way, or do we look at it in an optimistic way? So here's a cartoon for those who like break the cycle of negative thinking. Read it, but probably not do anything. we all fall into certain pessimistic leanings every once in a while, because you know what? What kind of person is truly optimistic all the time? You ever meet somebody who's just always optimistic? Sometimes they get on your nerves. Get down to earth. Be real, So let's turn to page 4, learning exercise 2. On the continuum between an optimist on the right-hand side and a pessimist on the left-hand side, where not where would you put yourself, but where would you put somebody who's a realist, somebody who's in touch with reality?
Yeah.
Ken, what do you think?
That's something to report.
A pessimist. So that's another way of thinking of it. Like maybe it's subjective, and then depending on which reality you're in, that's the side of the spectrum you're on. So the techniques that we are going to go through in this lesson is something that will, God willing, help us realize that there is actually an objective reality to our existence. So it's not just subjective, what reality do I find myself in? There was a great rabbi, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the chief rabbi of Great Britain, who was a college student, came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked him about what was going on in his university. And the was a classy Englishman went on to become the chief rabbi. He said, well, in the situation that I find myself in, and the Rebbe right away interrupted him and said, nobody ever finds themselves in a situation. You put yourself in a situation. And so that's what we're going to try to do, is put ourselves in touch with with an actual reality. And so before we do that, just want to go to another learning exercise on page 4, and want you to match up each one of these characters, you, your family, your social circle, etc., with one of the metaphors or description on the right. And you can use more than one description for multiple elements on the left.
So therefore, your daily schedule, you pick that one for the zoo, right?
So that's,
Your daily schedule, what is it? So each person, you just draw some lines. Ken, you need a pen?
I couldn't, but I want to.
I didn't want to jump up.
It'll be your book. You'll be able to look back on it.
I could, but I won't.
Draw with your finger.
Personally,
Or at least think through each one.
multiple choice.
And well, if everything's a zoo by you, you can just put, everything, you, your family, your social life, everything to zoo.
Well, no, it's not you. It's your family. So you pick one, right?
Where you're at currently, or what?
Yes.
The suitable metaphor for how you find, let's say, what's your family like? I come home after dinner and the place is a jungle, or the political arena.
How come they don't have a prison on here?
A prison?
Yeah.
What's the political arena like now, Mike? A desert, farm, field, forest, jungle, park, yard, or zoo? Zoo. Okay.
No, we're doing similes.
Yeah. What about planet Earth?
For what?
Planet Earth. Is it a garden, a forest, a field, a farm, a desert? A jungle?
Oh, planet Earth. I see. If I could pick that one, that's easy enough.
Moshe, your social circle is
The garden.
is your Facebook feed driving you nuts?
I think that.
I don't use
That's
that.
the
Okay.
But I would say it's very varied. So I would go with
Okay.
like a farm, maybe. And I mean that in a
Okay.
positive way. I'm not being negative.
That's fine.
I mean, it's kind of like there's all kinds of interesting things.
Yeah.
Daily schedule. I'm going to go with Ken.
So a lot of times people can find certain elements of their lives that fall in the garden category. But it's very rare that this garden metaphor or finding that beautiful serenity type of place, that a person views everything on this left-hand side in that way. It's very rare to find something. You agree?
Well, for a job, I wrote a garden because I worked with kids. I worked with special ed kids. So helping them is like growing something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can all find beautiful elements of our lives, and that's very good. But for the most part, many of us do not see the entire world or the political arena or these major things as a lot of times people think of them as a degenerate jungle or a wild zoo.
Jungle's kind of a cool place.
And
Exotic animals.
yeah,
Danger. Warm temperatures. Butterflies, insects.
but herein lies the major issue we have with the problem in today's lesson, the question. Text 1 on page 5. We look about with our physical eyes and perceive the physical aspects, and it makes us naturally wonder, what's happening to the world? It seems like the situation is steadily deteriorating from one generation to the next, and even from one year to the next. Goodness doesn't prevail. Conditions are not improving. Holy and spiritual values don't seem to dominate. This is especially true with regard to Jewish concerns. Our nation has always been a small minority amongst the world's inhabitants. This is certainly the case today. Such thoughts can easily lead to the conclusion that this world is but a jungle dominated by vicious animals. It certainly doesn't remotely resemble a garden that yields edible fruit. Such thought can lead to dejection and despair. How can we hope to affect change in the world for the better if the situation is consistently degenerating? If we reach this conclusion, even if we dutifully obey and we continue to study Torah and we do the mitzvahs that God asks of us, we'll lack the zest and happiness that is necessary in order to fulfill our mission and properly serve Hashem, inasmuch as it appears that we will certainly fail. For the world is no more than a wild jungle ruled by vicious beasts. So a very common motive in the Torah is that God is good. But when we look around, a lot of times we see it's not true. It looks like the goodness of God is isolated to certain elements of reality. Maybe God himself is good, or the Garden of Eden is good. Maybe Olam Haba, when Mashiach comes, it'll be good, or the world of souls, that's good. But this world seems like it's anything but good. And of course, that leads to very negative and then cynical views about the world around us. And so there are people who then choose to isolate themselves from the world and say, you know what, I'm going to focus on my task and do what I need to do and focus on making my life and my personal family into a garden, and I'm not going to worry about what's going on in the world around them. But the Rebbe's perspective was that that's not really a healthy way of dealing with that perspective, but that there is a way to see goodness and positivity in everything. We can do that by shifting our perspective. And it's very essential because it's not only, let's say, okay, so the world's a jungle, but I'm doing what I need to do. I'm doing what is demanded of me, what I am responsible for. So who cares if the world's a mess? But as the Jewish people, we are charged with a mission. We have something that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to make this world into a better place. If we just say, okay, I have faith, God is good, the world is good, but it doesn't look like that to me, but okay, I'll just believe it, it's still not going to inspire you to have the enthusiasm to really make a difference tomorrow. Because what can I do about it? You understand the dilemma? I want to introduce you to a very famous verse from Song of Songs, from King Solomon, who wrote a book known as the Song of Songs. Our sages say that if all the books of the Torah are holy, the Song of Songs is the holies of holies. Which talks about a love metaphor between a man and a woman and a man. And it's all a parable for the relationship between God and the Jewish people. So one of the verses from Song of Songs, which the Frierdiker Rebbe based his final work that he left for the day of his passing, which is coming up in 2 weeks, Yud Shvat. He wrote a discourse that began with a quotation from Song of Songs, I've come into my garden, my sister, my bride. And then every year after that, the Rebbe accepted his leadership by giving a discourse starting with this line, and then every year expounded upon that further and further. So it played a very big and significant role in the Chabad philosophy. So starting from 1950, that was the year that the previous Rebbe wrote his discourse entitled Bas Lagani, Come into My Garden. And then the Rebbe became Rebbe, assumed the leadership by giving over a discourse in 1951, 57:11, with this verse. What does the verse say? Bas Lagani, I've come into my garden, my sister, my bride. The term my sister is not necessarily biological, but kind of like the way we use friends and brothers, my dear brother, my dear friend, in the English language. So in the Hebrew language, the sister is for a feminine, a close friend, not necessarily my sister per se. So God is
like an Israeli father.
Yeah. So achoti is an endearment or a way of affection. And God is saying, I've come into my garden, my sister, my bride. This is referring to, God is telling the Jewish people, my sister, my bride, I have come into my garden. Now, where is God referring to when he's saying, I've come into my garden? Talking about this physical world. What does it mean God came? God is always everywhere. It's kind of like the way an equation can come to someone. For example, if you have a first grader that doesn't know that 2 + 2 is 4, and then that equation came to him, 2 + 2 is 4, math. And so now you could say that equation came. What does that mean? It was revealed to him. It was always there, but it was revealed to him. So this is an idea. God is saying, I've come to my garden, I've revealed myself into this world, into my garden. Now, how does he refer to this world? He calls it a garden. Isn't that an interesting term to use for discussing what this world looks like?
Well, it's all these different colors and details, shapes and forms.
There's so much beauty in the world, especially here in Humboldt. When you go out on a walk, you can see tremendous beauty in the forest. In text 3, the Rebbe stresses this idea of what does garden mean, or my garden in particular. And so, wissen sein as die Welt is a garden. We should know that the world is a garden, not just a field, which is necessary in order to exist, has some grain, but a garden. A garden is a place where you have luxurious fruits that grow, provide enjoyment and pleasure. So now, when we talk about a garden, it depends on whose garden it is. So if you have the king's garden, it's different than, let's say, the average man's garden. And here, so every term garden is subjective. It's relative to whose garden it is, how grand it's going to be. Here, God is calling the world, not just, I've come into this world, a garden, a beautiful place. No, I've come into this world, my garden. From the divine perspective, this world is a garden. It's my garden. Like we say in our prayers every day, text 4, In his kindness, God renews each day continuously the work of his creation. It says in Tehillim that God, in his kindness, is ever creating the world. For his kindness is eternal. A little bit of Hebrew over here. You see the word le'olam in bold? What does the word le'olam mean? Eternal. How do you say world in Hebrew? Olam. Olam is world. Ki le'olam chaso, his kindness is eternal. His kindness is eternal to the world. So God is good. His kindness is everlasting. And that everlasting kindness is found here in this world, in this garden. Can ask me a question on that. What kind of philosophical concepts can challenge this idea of those worlds being God's garden? I need somebody to be a little bit skeptical here.
Yes, because I ascribe to the philosophy of existentialism.
You know, it's very common for people to think that God has just abandoned the world. I mean, you ever look around? What kind of phenomena, think exercise 4, challenge the notion that this world is God's garden? Try to think of one or two examples of something that challenges this notion that this world is a beautiful garden. Can you think of anything?
Where to find it?
Can you find a notion or a problem with this thesis that the world is God's beautiful garden full of kindness and loving kindness and mercy?
Yeah. That's why we're describing.
What issues do you have with that? Not issues like you have a problem with the world being that way, but you look around at reality, and what are some of the things that challenge that notion? Wars. That's a good one. War.
War. Oh, okay.
Doesn't sound very kind. Anything else?
Well,
So all of those
we're
can kind of be
gonna
divided into three general categories. You have human pain and suffering and tragedies, illnesses, major things. You have little nuances or challenges in life, and hardships and adverse adversaries. And third, you look around the world and you see a lot of immorality and transgression, and all these wrongful acts that are being committed against God and man.
That doesn't mean his kindness doesn't exist in them.
Right. But what we're going to go through,
All this existential history of only
what we're going to go through is
anxiety.
to look at these three areas and be able to see the garden nature in each and every one of them. So that's basically the lesson plan for today. To go through these three categories and to be able to see it in a garden-like manner. There we go. So to introduce it, I want to share with you a short, it's a 3-minute clip of the Lubavitcher Rebbe that brings out kind of the process that we're going to be going through today, and also the idea of paradigm shift. It's like an introduction to the whole course, as well as far as seeing reality and being an optimist. Like the Lubavitcher Rebbe is not grounded in delusion, but grounded in a concrete understanding of what this world really is.
Und unter demut, a viel als versteht nicht, weiß ich aber, a Teres Emes hat mal sehr gesagt, ist da sicher, dass der Emes ist sei, ist unter demut guckt auf der Welt anders. Und als guckt anders, der Setter, und das, was bei einer Bosser beschiedlich ist, auf den nächsten Guck, bemerkt man nicht. Weiß aber, was darf suchen. Und sucht in der Richtung auf Eise gefunden, wo sie gefunden sich unter der Klippe. unter der eiswenigste Scholert. Der Peris von unter dem Gan ist abschas sucht in der Richtung, ist zum allermeisten ist sicher, als wird sicher gefunden, warum Teres sagt immer, dass da und wissen die, als wird sicher gefunden, an Netzer Jokor Mikol Jikor. Peris, wo sie sein, wo der Rebesteher ist auf sie meid, a das Peris von sein Pardis, in welchen gefindt sich in Aiker Schiene betachten im Häuser, ist lefi Erich von dem Jäger Peris, wird ihm nicht abschrecken und nicht abstellen, keine Stadlos und kein Jegio, und wird sich nicht losen, abreden und vernehmen sich mit seitigen Sachen, wissen die, als Fan wart an Netzer Jokor Mikol Jikor, Megale sein in der Welt, dass sie gerne Shela Kodesh Baruch Hu. Und Shela Kodesh Baruch Hu in der Neven von Ike Schchina. Was das ist, lefi Hasboro zu, der Hero von jem Ha-Hilule und jem Ha-Istalkos, auf mitzunehmen das Alkohol ha-Schon im Kula, und mit jem sehr Alkohol ha-Schon bis von Assyri beschwart, Habo leine Alkohol Israel Letevo, am soll wissen sein, am gefindt sich in einer teure Welt. Nur der Jeser Hore ist sich mischtadel becholi Fanim, auf zudecken die Teierkeit, was gefindt sich in Welt, gedei, man soll sich mit Jahe sein, Chas Visholen. Oder Alkohol ponim Ton mehr nicht von Jeser wegen, Vechuli, und unter dem der Monten sich Ados ist Nosse, auf Druf ist beschaffen geworden, auf Zudecken, auf Nemes, ist sich kein Wunder nicht, was gefindt. Kammer Pituin, Hassosis, Vechuli, und me geht better darke derech Malke Shalelom ze HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Was hat das Megale gewähren, alle der Avod Man Malke Rabbonon. Und bechol der, wo der alle der Nossi Shalei, und bederein dem Nossi, dem Baal Ha-Hilule, und me geht in ein Neffen von Lobetter, wissendig, an me sichere Sache mit zukommen. Und gefinnen de Peres Tevis von dem Gan, von dem Gnuni.
Goats,
Mhm.
rocks that are, just plain and ugly, but then, you cut them, whatever, then it's all this beautiful jewels, crystallized. So it's, to
Right.
everything, there's this goodness. And then in someone else, they might be hard to the core on the
Right.
outside, but inside, there's this treasure. It's just hard by all
Yep.
types of life.
Next week's lesson, we're going to talk more about how we can find that goodness within ourselves and within every single person. And here we're going to try to crack open that rock, like you're saying, and see the beauty in the three categories that we just previously mentioned, to see how they are part of God's
This
garden.
month was I'm in a Musar group,
Mhm.
and so we look at a different trait each month. And this last one was showing favor to another. Like, and you look at, you think of someone who you don't like, that they just like, but you pick at least one good virtue.
Right. So the Rebbe spoke this Sikha, and it's very moving because you could tell that the Rebbe is in it. He sees the world as God's garden. And then the Chassidim came over to him and said, all is good and well, but we have a question. What about the Yetzer Hara? You ever heard of the Yetzer Hara? The evil inclination. It's the source of toxic behaviors like laziness, anger, addictions, and all sorts of immorality and unholy things. How are those elements, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, good, garden-like? They came and they asked the Rebbe this question, and he didn't make up a line. He just quoted from the Medrash. I don't know how they ever understood this Medrash. Look at text 6. V'hinei tov. So when God created the world, he said, the world is good. The Medrash says, V'hinei tov. When God said this world is good, ze yitzar tov. This is the good inclination. Makes sense so far, right? Good to good inclination. Me'oid. God said, this is very good. Ze yitzar hara. The Medrash goes on and says, what is very good? That's the evil inclination. I have no clue how they understood this for thousands of years. It's so baffling. It's like, imagine looking in a health magazine that says, seaweed and kale, those are good for you. Coca-Cola and Pepsi, very good. It's so counterintuitive. The Yetzer Tov, that's good. The Yetzer Hara, that's very good. What's going on? I mean, yeah, you could give certain answers as to why the evil inclination could have certain elements of good. For example, without a selfish drive, a person wouldn't go and build a home and marry and have children. You know, you could do those things for altruistic reasons, but for the most part, you know, you end up using your animalistic instincts against itself, and you do positive things with it. But the problem is, okay, fine, that has some good. You know, some good could come out of it. But how could you call that very good? It seems. So in order to understand this, we have to address a general theme that's going to come up throughout this course a couple of times. And I'm sure you're familiar with it because you've been to the Chabad house before. And it's an assertion of why the world was created. There's a medrash that says, the purpose of this world's creation. There's a renowned rabbinic statement from Tanchuma that says that God's desire is to have a home in the lowest world. So God had a desire for a home. You ever heard that medrash before? Medrash Tanchuma? Why did God create the world? God wanted to have a home in this lowest realm.
Sure.
Not a what?
Oh, I just was kind of confused. To have a home in the lowest world, he means earth.
Yeah, our existence, our plane of existence is not just low relative to the spiritual worlds of the angels and whatnot. It's lowest. It's the lowest it gets.
So, but if the Yitzhara brings you to the lower worlds within this world, then that's the lowest you get.
Oh, so here we're getting to a touch of the answer. Without the Yetzer Hara, this world would not be a lowly world. We'd be angels, right? But that's not the divine desire. The divine desire is to have a home, which, by the way, why is the metaphor of home used? A home is a place where you're most comfortable. That's where your morals and values, you can live your life the way you want. Whatever's going on, anywhere else, your home, you can run the way you want. So the divine morals and values and the way that God wants the world to be running, that's what he's talking about, making this world into a home, a place where the divine virtues and values are apparent, are revealed. Now, how do we make a home out of this lowly realm if we don't have the challenges? And imagine you have a sports match with no opposing team. Just kick it right into the other goal. And the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, or why is there so much evil in the world? You saw the spray bottle of the guy trying to detox the world because of all the evil that's going on, which at first glance can look like this is a wild zoo. It's not a garden. It's not a beautiful place. You realize, hey, what is the evil inclination here for? It's so that we can make a home for God in this lowly world. So we have a lowly world to make a home for God. It's like a father playing basketball with his child and blocking the shots and playing hard to challenge the kid, but really to boost the kid up. He's not doing it to put the kid down. A loving father doesn't do that. So it's not even like the parable of two sports teams where they're both trying to win, because the evil inclination is not even trying to win. It's like the emanation of godliness that's there to bring out your latent powers and to make a home for God in this lowest world. The evil inclination enables us to fulfill our mission of making a home for God in this world. So therefore, our challenges are not reasons for despair, but when they're looked at through this perspective. Remember, we're trying to seek and find, look at the world from the divine perspective. We know God calls this world a garden. How can we call this world a garden when there's so much evil? When we have the evil inclination ourselves and we see the inclination all over the place? We redefine our evil inclination. It's opportunities for growth. And that's how Yaakov was able to sing songs of praise when he was being oppressed by his scammy father-in-law, who became his father-in-law, Lavan. He was working in the house of Lavan. The deal kept getting changed, and he was tricked, and he was forced to work very hard. He was put under physical burden, running away from his evil twin brother who wanted his life. But what does the Medrash say he was doing the whole time? What was Yaakov doing by Lavan? Moshe. It says he was singing Shir Hamalot. He was singing Song of Ascents, Song of Praise to God. How was Yaakov able to do that? Singing Song of Ascents in an oppressive environment?
Shepherd,
It's a shepherd who was doing his thing.
animal husbandry, and all these things.
He was looking at the big picture. He saw that these challenges were there in order to build the Jewish people. Without those challenges, he wouldn't have had those 12 Shvatim, the 12 tribes. They weren't born in Israel. They were born outside. They weren't created under just easygoing situations, but it had to be through the challenges. So those challenges, to be able to marry Rachel, to be able to marry Leah, and to raise a family under that hostile environment, is what made him who he is. To this very day, we call the Jewish people Bnei Yisrael, the children of this man who, during adversity, was singing praises to Hashem.
You're talking about Yaakov?
Yeah.
So is that why in the Torah it goes so back and forth, even in the same sentence of Israel and Yaakov?
Yeah, because Yaakov is not a negative name. Yaakov means the wrestler, the one who's coming and wrestling with the heel and trying to deceive or whatever. So that's not a negative thing. That was part of Yaakov's characteristic. So even after he got the name Yisrael, which is like flying high and above, he was still this character who thrived with challenges. Challenges didn't put him down. He saw them for what they are, and they picked him up. They got him going. So our Yetzer Hara can not only be like a weed in our garden, that like if you just pull out this one weed, then everything's beautiful. No, it's the most beautiful gem in the garden. It's the Toiv Mo'ay. It's the most beautiful flower in our garden.
In my property in Redcrest where we used to live, there was all this ivy uncovered. And I pulled it all up. My basement, all these other different weeds came up. They were beautiful. They were purple, pink. I mean, it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
All hidden under this. It was just amazing.
So God orchestrates all of these scenarios in order to get us to fight, to get us to battle, not to disturb our divine service. So when we realize what that adversity is, we respond by being Yaakov-like. We're going to start singing Shir HaMalos. It's going to evoke within us that extra energy and extra courage. So it's going to give us the reason to sing. There was a large shoe manufacturer that sent out two retail men to go and sell shoes to this far-off island. And both of these guys sent back very different messages. One of them says, I am shipping back all of the shoes that you sent me with, and I'm coming back home. There's no point in opening shop here. Nobody here wears shoes. Another guy says, oh, produce much more. You gotta send me your whole shipment, send me the whole warehouse. Nobody has shoes here. The same people looking at the same situation, but one of them is seeing a challenge and one of them is seeing an opportunity. I want to share a short video of the Rebbe showing people how they, in their own personal lives, can see opportunity in their personal challenges.
Dr. David Lukens is chair of the Political Science Department at Touro College. For 20 years, he served on the staff of U.S. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan.
My two best stories with the Rebbe in public policy, and I use them in class. I used the first one I used in class in American politics as an example. There was a woman in Brooklyn, college teacher named Shirley Chisholm. She got elected to the United States Congress in the mid-60s. She was a fiery speaker. She was considered a black power advocate. Whites were scared silly of her. And she was the first black woman ever elected to the United States Congress, and she was a bomb thrower. So the white Southern racists that ran the U.S. House of Representatives from the South said, we'll teach this blank a lesson. And they assigned her to the Agricultural Committee of the House of Representatives. It was a great gelächter, it was a great joke. I still remember the New York Times front page article said, does a tree grow in Brooklyn, question mark. And they said, you know, the chairman, they've appointed Shirley Chisholm, not to housing, which she requested, not to a committee on poverty, but the Agriculture Committee. And when she retired from the House, I was there when she told the following story. She said she was very depressed, very upset, and didn't know what to do. She got a phone call. The Lubavitcher rabbi wants to see you. And of course, she was the congresswoman from Crown Heights. She had helped win the election, the primary, with the strong support of Lubavitch. She had some very close relationship with people in the Crown Heights community, and she came to see the Rebbe. She told the story. She had seen him once before when he had refused to endorse her. But then he said, everyone voted for me, so I guess he did something. She was very cute about that. She said, but then she came to see him the second time, and he sat down and he said, I know you're very upset. She says, I am upset. I'm insulted. What should I do? And he said, what a blessing God's given you. This country has so much surplus food, and there's so many hungry people, and you can use this gift that God's given you to feed hungry people. Find a creative way to do it. And she says the first day she came to Washington, she met a young congressman who's now a world-famous figure, Robert Dole from Kansas. And they started talking, and he said, you know, our farmers have all this extra food. We don't know what to do with it. She said, 1 second, the rabbi. And what we call WIC and food stamps largely expanded. It was a tiny pilot program before the whole existing food stamps program came out of the Agriculture Committee of the United States Congress. And Shirley Chisholm said, in front of everyone there in Washington, she said, I owe this because a rabbi who was an optimist taught me optimism, taught me that what God gives, what you may think is a challenge is a gift from God. She said, if poor children, babies, I heard her say this, she said, poor babies have milk, if poor children have food, it's because this rabbi in Crown Heights had vision.
לי, כשהיינו בהתוועדות, כשהוא התפטר מהממשלה בשביל שאלת מי הוא יהודי, שהוא כמו ספורטאי. הוא ילך אחורנית קצת בשביל ללכת מאוד קדימה. ואני יצאתי מההתוועדות.
פעמיים, לכל הפחות.
למרות שכל הפוליטיקאים והעיתונאים היו נגד, ברוך השם, הנבואה והמילים של האדמו"ר הקדוש הם שהתגשמו, וכך זה קרה. כל הנבואות והדברים היו הצידה, והמילים של האדמו"ר הקדוש הם שהתקיימו. אני מודה לכבוד האדמו"ר.
אבל דבר בשלב בלקאי, מה שאמרתי אתמול, שהוא משתדל כפליים, ולא משל השם כלל מהמנהיגים, ועד אליו בגיסים האוהב, דווקא כשיש מנהגים. זה בקרב מיודו.
נכון.
כשהוא יודע שיש מנהגים, אז ניתן כרך חדש, להעלות מהמנהגת שהוא ימציא גם אותו.
אמן כן יהי רצון.
מתוך שמחה וטוב לבו.
תודה לכבוד האדמו"ר. תודה.
ואחרון חביב, אם מותר לי לבקש בשביל עצמי פעם משהו. יש הרבה אנשים שרודפים אותי. בגלל זה שאני מצליח לעשות את כל הדברים האלה. ועושים לי כל מיני בעיות בנושא של חקירות ומשטרות, איך אני מביא כסף מאמריקה ואיך אני עושה את כל הדברים. הייתי מבקש שהרבי ייתן לי ברכה, שכל הדברים האלו שעושים נגדי לא יעלה בידי אף אחד, ושאני אצא מכל הדברים האלה חזק ומחוזק.
להיות בעל הבית על המחשבה של איש אחר, זהו אי אפשר, כי הקדוש ברוך הוא עצמי לפי בחירה חופשית, צריך ללכת לאחת לבני ישראל. אבל מה שאתה יכול לבקש, שלהפיל מזה כל הזיק, ואדרבה זה יהיה עת יותר, את התשוקה יותר, כי טבע של יהודים, שהם רואים שמישהו מתנגד, אז הם מתעורר אצלם רצון לעשות דווקא ככלל.
Wir haben Mittwoch bei Untergeschichten das erste Mal am Mikve Schitte von Chabad in Tel Aviv, das wird bei Bora und Gabe Bora, neben Kikar Dizenkoff auf Rechov Bar Kochma. Wenn ein Stück alle Arum dem geschehen ist, wenn sie nicht gewinnen, so sagt, kommt in den letzten 15 Jahren.
In welchem Stand der Dinge, wenn geht der Staat, kommen aus den Gewinken nie und nicht machen kein Tier. Wenn die das gewinnt, haben wir gewinnt an der Tapayir. Schaß, ich gewinnt an Jir, und wenn man noch ein Jischu, ist sie nach dem meisten Welt im Klub.
Sie gewinnen ein starker Jeder.
Aber die sich am Batten bewattelt gewinnt. Weil er hat die Bütze für mich. Wenn die das übersehen, das bin ja noch stärker. Weil zu steht das Loch herab.
Documents that as long as it's not been contested, it can't be formally validated. So you have, let's say, a document of a sale or a loan. You know, I gave you a loan, and here's the document. Until somebody comes and says, no, that's an invalid document, they can't go and say, okay, well, let's see who signed on this document, and let's verify the document, and then put the seal of the Beis Din of the Court of Jewish Law on it, and now this document, being that it's been contested, has a stronger validity than before it was contested. So here they wanted to build a certain style of mikvah that was based on chidushim, based on a novel way of containing the rainwater on the bottom instead of next to it, because that way it mixes less with the tap water, and the whole high-tech contraption as to how that mikvah works. And they at first didn't want to do that. They wanted to do the classic style where it was side by side. It's been done for years. And the chief rabbi was saying, well, we fought the opposition and we were able to get the approval to be able to build the mikvah in this style. And the Rebbe was saying, you were looking at it as an opposition. This was an opportunity to formally, stamp in that this is a kosher mikvah. This is, an okay thing to do. And now, in America or wherever else, you can build this type of mikvah, and nobody, bats an eye because this is considered a kosher mikvah. This is what they do. This is the chief rabbi of Israel. He's built a mikvah like this. And it's an accepted way of building a mikvah. So people came to the Rebbe from all walks of life and wrote about their personal issues and the problems that they were having. And the Rebbe didn't just give them encouraging words, carry on, but help each individual see the goodness in their personal situation. But what do you do when somebody writes to you about something so tragic that there is nothing to explain? or that there's no human explanation that's going to work. For example, people who wrote to Reddit for having challenges in faith because the Holocaust happened, or a loved one passed away, or somebody is dealing with a paralyzing illness. How do you deal with those types of challenges? The types of bad things that are not just, okay, here's an adversary, here's a challenge standing in your way. And if you overcome it, you're going to become stronger from it. It's an opportunity. It's a stepping stone. What about the horrible things? War, the terrible things that happen. How do you address those types of things? Are you familiar with the Guide to the Perplexed from the Guide to the Perplexed from Maimonides? So there are a couple readings, 9, A, B, and C, and D, which are, we'll skip now for time's sake, but I encourage you, when you take the book home tonight, to read through 9A, B, C, and D. There are a lot of quotes from the Rambam from Maimonides to help us work through these issues. When you look around, especially if you're on Facebook, you read the newspaper, all you hear about are the tragedies. The plane crash, the family that lost their life in the fire just recently, all of these horrible things. And if your worldview is painted by what you see in the newspaper, it's pretty depressing. Because all you hear about are the bad things, right?
Not always.
Well, if you think about it, the only reason why it makes the news is because they're kind of rare. So we have to choose which aspects of our lives we are going to emphasize. And in this world, yes, there is a mixture. But are we going to focus on the 1% in the early deaths or the terminal illnesses or these types of things, which are rare occurrences? Or are we going to focus on the world at large and what's going on? We have to choose which perspective we want. Did we delete certain slides?
You're lost.
No. So just to quickly run through the Guide to Perplexed, which you can read yourselves later. That Guide to Perplexed, but the readings from here are pretty basic psychology, which I think you can understand. So when it comes to big things, you really can't explain them on a logical level because there is no explanation. Imagine if you had a 5-year-old who a great scientist wanted to explain to him his new scientific breakthrough. They're talking to a wall. You can't understand certain things. And here we're talking about a kid who can grow up to surpass the wisdom of that great scientist. So similarly, ourselves and our ability to see the world, when it comes to these types of really heavy tragedies, for the tragedy itself, we don't have an answer. It's only God knows. And God's wisdom is way beyond our own wisdom. However, if you take a second and you look around the world, you'll realize that the world at large is healthy. The world at large is not going through complete paralysis of the limbs, or dealing with these huge defects or deformations. If you judge the whole universe by a single person, then that's kind of silly. You have to look at the focus on the bigger picture. And even for somebody going through a exceptionally difficult situation, you could fixate on that one really difficult aspect of your life, and that could paralyze you. Or you could look at the other 99% of your life. So even within the person itself, you get to choose what it is that you want to focus on. If you look at the structure and fabric of the world, you see that there is goodness there. Matter of fact, if you look at human needs, what are things that you need the most? You need air. Without air, you can't breathe, you can't live for a moment. How much does air cost? It's abundant, it's free. Now, you can technically survive on just water. A lot of people can survive many days without eating any food. And water is an abundant resource that we have in our world. And then even food. Food is our next necessity. Like the story, there's a tree grow in Brooklyn. There is a lot of food in this world. It's a little bit harder to come by than water. It's a little more expensive than water. But relatively speaking, you don't have to be a millionaire to afford food. As a matter of fact, in America, what's the problem? Obesity. We're eating too much. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a lack of food. We have large quantities of food and well, if you want to get food that's a little bit more nutritious, it's not that much more expensive. You just got to put a little bit of work into it and cook your own stuff. You know, it could be argued that buying a salad and just the raw ingredients for a salad in a supermarket is cheaper than going to the fast food places once they load on all the extras. It's not really a dollar menu, but we see God's kindness in that aspect of how readily available what it is that we need is. And then luxuries like diamonds or golden necklaces or things that are excessive. You don't need to have those things. So those things are rare and only some people have them. We live in a culture already where if my neighbor has such and such, 2 Cadillacs, one his and one hers. I would use the term, I don't know what type of cars people are into, but back then it was Cadillacs. So then, I need to have my 2 Cadillacs. But do you really need 2 Cadillacs? So if you can't afford it, is it such a crime? Is it such a horrible place that God made? See, what you need is available. So there's so much good in life that we just take for granted. Yeah, there is suffering, but it's such a minute percent of what is really going on. Let's turn to page 21 and read a letter that the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent, which helps to address this. Yeah, you want to read it? 21. Text 10.
I acknowledge receipt of your letter. Despite its tone and content, I have not, God forbid, lost hope that eventually you will appreciate the good in life, including the good in your own life. And that this appreciation will impact your emotions and mind. In our world, everything is a mixture of good and bad. Human beings must choose which aspects they emphasize, contemplate, pursue. In everyone's life, there are 2 paths, the good and the opposite. How instructive is it that with the sages tell us that Adam was angry even before he was banished from the Garden of Eden, or within the literal paradise, he complained about his circumstances. On the other hand, there were Jewish men and women who thanked and blessed the Creator, who recited the many blessings while living through the most horrifying times in the German concentration camps. Ultimately, everyone's circumstances will be somewhere between extremes. Needless to say, my intention is not to imply that anyone deserves suffering. My point is simply to underscore the reality. The type of lives we live, whether full of satisfaction, meaning to the opposite, depends in large measure on our willpower, which dictates whether we'll focus on the positive or the negative.
So we've so far explored two steps in our excavation. We're trying to crack open the rock and see the gem on the inside. First, we established that in the bigger picture, suffering within this world is a lot less than the positive and the joyous experiences that are around. And even for those who are suffering within their own lives, there's much that they can be, there's much good that they can perceive themselves. It's just a matter of which perspective you are going to fixate on. You can fixate on the 1%, or you're going to fixate on the 99%. And the truth is, even those weeds in the garden, which may be incomprehensible for us to understand their goodness at a certain place, even those things are a part of the garden and are ultimately good, even though we don't necessarily relate to it. But we don't have to get fixated on, how can I see the goodness in this one little thing that feels like a weed when you have so much to be grateful for. This is a revolutionary way of looking at things, because it's not just a matter of, I'm going to pick and choose and be subjective. I'm going to look at the good. I'm not going to look at the bad. But it's grounded in the reality of what is actually going on in this universe. Tell me, what is 99? Tell me what is really happening, and is it all that bad? And even if you look at your own life, are you going to get all caught up and ruin your life over that one time that somebody hit you, over that one issue that you're having? Here's another short video where the Rebbe talks to what people call disabled soldiers, and suggests that we call them something else, not disabled.
Mr. Yosef Lautenberg was injured in the battle for Jerusalem during the War of Independence in 1948. He was among the founders of the IDF Disabled Veterans Organization and the founder of Beit HaLochem, a rehabilitation facility for wounded soldiers. He led the Israeli delegation, made up in large part by injured IDF veterans, to the 1976 Paralympics in Toronto. Mr. Lautenberg had an idea to bring the group to New York to visit with the Rebbe.
התקשרתי למזכירו של הרבי ומיד התקבלתי בתשובה חיובית בחמימות, וקבענו את המועד שנבקר בחצר הרבי, ובאנו עם שני אוטובוסים לחצר הרבי, לבית של הרבי, וכמובן יצאו לקראתנו והביאו אותנו, שמרו לנו מקומות בחזית הבמה, וישבנו, ואני מוכרח לומר, אני אישית בהתרגשות רבה, וזו הייתה איזו רוח מיוחדת, רוח של קדושה, ויצא הרבי ועלה לבמה ודיבר עלינו. הוא דיבר, עיקר דבריו היו למשלחת הזו, ואנחנו חשנו בהתרגשות הגדולה שלו, מתוך באמת יחס מיוחד, הוא דיבר אלינו בעברית. זה היה באמת דבר שדיבר ללב כולם פה בהתרגשות, והיו בינינו אנשים מסורתיים, והיו כאלה שאינם מסורתיים, אבל קיבלו את הדבר הזה, את המפגש הזה עם הרבי, באמת בהערכה בהתרגשות רבה, אין פה מה לדבר.
ולכן גם כן אין דייטין נכה מהשם שנסים למישהו שהוא נכה, שזהו מראה על משהו נחיסוס וירידו, כי אם אדרבה צורך להדגיש בזה שהוא משהו מיוחד ומצוין על ידי בורא האדם, שנוסן לכיחס מיוחדים יסיירים על מה שישנם לאדם מן השורה, ולכן דווקא ביכולתי להסגבר על קושיים ומניעס שאין ביכולת להסגבר עליהם לאדם מן השורה. ולכן הייתי מציע שישנו השם ויקורו מצוינים בישראל.
ישבנו קסומים שמה, האזנו לדרשה שלו. ואני כאדם שעסקתי כל חיי בתחום הזה, אני יכול לומר שדברי הרבי היו נר לרגליי, ומצאתי אנשים שנפגעו בצורה הכי קשה, עיוורים ומשותקים וכן הלאה, ובמעט שנשאר להם, הם הגיעו להישגים הכי גדולים שאדם יכול לתאר לעצמו, שזה דבר שאדם שלא מכיר את התחום הזה וכן הלאה לא יכול להאמין. וזה הרבי תפס מיד כשהוא ראה אותנו וכשהוא קיבל אותנו, וזה דיבר אלינו בצורה בלתי רגילה. וכשהוא סיים את הדרשה, הרבי ירד אלינו, דבר שאמרו לי שזה דבר שהוא לא מקובל. הוא ירד אלינו, לחץ את ידי כולם, ידי כל המשלחת, הוא לחץ את ידי. זה היה מין חיזיון שקשה לתאר אותו. היינו שם לפחות שעה, שיותר אולי. חשנו שהאיש באמת אוהב אותנו. אוהב את הנתן ומעריך את הנכים שתרמו מגופם לשלמותה ולהקמתה של מדינת ישראל, ואתה חשת בזה, אין פה מה לדבר.
בברכו בתדו רבה על הכובד הגודל שנזכבדתי על ידי הביקור שלכם, והיא רוצן שרבי פעמים תצליחו להוביל שמחה ואב ויהדות בכל מקום שתבקרו, הם בחוץ לארץ ולאחרי זה גם כן בארץ הקודש.
So you see many different areas where people felt my life is ruined. Nobody appreciates who I am. I'm a handicap. I said, "Oh, you're exceptional. You put your bodies on the line to save the Jewish people. I give you my hakaras hatov, my appreciation. I thank you." And I object to people calling you handicapped because you're exceptional. You have exceptional quality. And each person, where they are and what they have, are exceptional. They can focus on that. So we spoke about not fixating on the 1% of misery that's in your life, and seeing the general positivity, or if some people get all depressed about the world situation, but it's really a very subjective and narrow view of reality, because the only thing that you're looking at are the tragedies, instead of focusing on actual reality, focus on what's really going on in this world. And there's a story of a man who did a Siyum Sefer Torah, a joyous celebration for completing a Sefer Torah. And at that joyous celebration, a woman passed away. A Jewish lady, and he wrote how distraught and disturbed he was that here he thought he was doing a big mitzvah and doing a Siyum Sefer Torah, and someone passed away at that event. It seemed very ominous. It seemed like it was like a negative thing. And text 11 on page 23, the Rebbe said, if she wasn't invited to the Torah celebration, she would have suffered her fatal attack in a very different setting, perhaps on the street or maybe in the presence of a stranger, or she could be deprived of the comforting presence of a physician who was also a dear friend of hers and shared her religious values. In her final moments, she would have not heard words of encouragement, nor would she be surrounded by her friends and colleagues. The vast difference between these two possible scenarios is self-understood. Moreover, consider how significant the last moments of a life to a dying person is. Based on the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, regarding the teachings of divine providence, it's possible that one of the true reasons why God inspired so-and-so to donate the Torah and is to allow for the tranquil ascent of this young woman's soul, and that it should occur in a Jewish home, a home that displays and is protected by a mezuzah whose first words are, heroism, Lord is our God, the Lord is one. We said, first of all, each person has their limited set of days. It's not like she died early because she was at your Torah celebration. She was going to die at that time. Each person has their fixed number of days from the moment they're born. We don't know what that number is, but the fact that she was able to have that ascent in such a holy place and in such a surrounding is really a very positive thing. And finally, one of the things that inspired me to come to Humboldt County was that we are still in the 60s and the counterculture movement of the hippies. And you might think that that would be a very negative thing. I remember I was interviewed by the Emerald, so it's a new magazine when I first moved out here, and I'm about 5 years old. And they said, how are you, a religious Jew, going to come to a place where everyone's, free and against religion and very, strong in their opposition of the normative culture? What would the Rebbe's response, as a very deeply religious person, be to seeing the youth run off from living Mesudar, suited lives to going out and, being all free, and there's nobody who can rule over me, nobody can tell me what to do, there's no rules, there's no God, there's no religion. How would someone like the Rebbe view a situation like that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Big paradigm shift, right?
You would think, they're destroying the system. He said, what is the establishment now? They're growing up, and their parents are telling them that you should go get a job, you should go to college and get a job in order that you could afford a nice home, and you could have a large bank account, and you could have 2 Cadillacs. That was the big thing back then. And to be honorees at the banquet. He said, when that constitutes the reason for good and evil, what do you expect? Of course they're going to run off. These youngsters are in the process of a spiritual journey. What are they seeking? They're yearning for spirituality. They're yearning for direction. And what type of people are these running for direction? These are not people who are sheep just following and doing whatever they're told to do. Well, these are brazen people with chutzpah. That's great. Those are the types of people that will change the world and make this world into a better place. People who are not going to say, okay to the status quo. People who are going to say, no, I don't care what the norm is. And that's the way it was in the 60s. It came in droves to yeshivas. The first Chabad houses went to the campuses in Berkeley and wherever where the epicenters of this counterculture movement was going. And people gravitate towards emes. People gravitate towards what is true and what is real. And that's what the essence of this hippie movement was all about. Seeking and searching for this emes. And so when they came in touch with Hasidus, they came in touch with the Rebbe's teachings, it was like a breath of fresh air, a cup of cold water. Here, this is what I was yearning for. I was trying to break away from, the drag of normative life, and you've just introduced me to an opportunity to connect with the emes, to connect with true reality. And this is something which, we can't go through all the examples of how the Rebbe twisted a story that looked like it was negative into the positive. You could write volumes on that based on the Rebbe's teachings. For example, one of the popular ones is when the spies went into Israel and they saw the big fruits over there and the giants, 10 out of the 12 said, "They're giants, they're going to squash us, their fruits are huge," or whatever. 2 of them said, "Wow, look at this blessed land that God is going to give us. Huge fruits, big blessings." You could look at it in a negative way, or you can choose to look at the positive. And our ability to see the emes, to see the truth for what it really is, defines our ability to attack our problems with optimism and enthusiasm that we need in order to make a true difference in this world. So if a Rebbe's perspective is being able to see godliness in the world, which that's basically what a Rebbe is, but who cares? So a Rebbe can see Elikos in the world. But you know what makes a Rebbe my Rebbe? Or what would make this Rebbe that person's Rebbe? Is that their Rebbe enables them to see godliness in the world. A Rebbe is somebody who sees Elikos in the world. What makes a Rebbe your Rebbe is that he helps you be able to see that truth, that clarity. Now, this optimism of the Rebbe was not just a character trait. Like I said, certain people are naturally leaning towards the optimistic side, and people are naturally leaning towards the pessimistic side. But it was something that was grounded in a firm understanding of reality. I would say a realist, if you're really in touch with reality, you'd be the ultimate optimist. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's fine and hunky-dory. There were examples where after the Six-Day War, there was a very dangerous defense strategy that was chosen by the Israelis on the east side of the Suez Canal called the Bar-Lev line. And the Bar-Lev line, just east of the Suez Canal. They set up a line. They said the buck stops here. Nobody can pass this line because we're setting up a strong contingent of our troops on this line. And the Rebbe said, you're making the same mistake that they made in World War II. These lines don't work. You can't just set up all your troops on a line and say, you know, this is where the buck stops. And it was actually very tragic because they didn't listen to the Rebbe's advice, and they ended up blowing through that line in about 2 hours, and they lost a lot of lives. But if the Rebbe was just naturally an optimist, he could say, okay, we got to defend Israel. You got to make a vessel, a keli, in our physical world. So you have to do something about it. You have to send the troops and whatever. But whatever you're doing, it's all going to be good. It's all good, right? A natural optimist, the reason why we get so annoyed at an optimist is because, no, you can't just do something that's stupid. You can't just do something that's illogical. The Rebbe's optimism was grounded in a firm understanding of reality. And therefore, he opposed things like that. Or when the Rebbe was smuggling Jews out of Soviet Russia behind the Iron Curtain, did a lot of co-op operations, undercover, getting Jews out, working with certain parts of the government that were okay, or managed to use the corruption against them to help the Jewish people. And there were other groups who felt that the best way to help the Jewish people was by creating a huge protest by Washington, D.C., and having Washington, D.C. put pressure on the communists to drop their communistic ways. And the Rebbe said, this is not a good approach, because the more you pressure them, the harder they lock down, and the harder my operations are going to be, and the harder it's going to be to make the whole communism fall. So if he was just a natural optimist, he would say, it's all good, do whatever you want, it's all going to be good. But it wasn't. The Rebbe took hard stances on different issues. And so today, we can also see that garden within our own lives. We were given a few tools today to see that garden in those 3 elements that tend to oppose our garden perspective. And the exercise for the week is to try to identify and then realign an area of our lives that previously we would think of as a complete opposition, as something that goes against the garden-like nature of reality, and using the tools that we've learned today to perceive the truth, to perceive the real reality and the divine garden that's within it. Because we know it's there. It's not just hopeful thinking. This is God's Torah that He gave to us. It's the truth. It's a matter of finding that truth and experiencing it within our own lives. So that's the lesson one. So here's a recap. The hippies were decrying the moral bankruptcy of the modern culture. Their chutzpah will allow them to discover Judaism. A rebellious energy channeled properly will change the world. The Rebbe didn't have followers. The Rebbe created leaders. He didn't want people who are just going to fall in line and do as I say. And people who have chutzpah, people are going to say, no, what is this about?
That's right. Is that right? You're there during the 50 days. Is that an accurate description of the 50 days?
I will write down a reference that you can go to YouTube and get a very famous song from Joni Mitchell. You know Joni Mitchell?
Never heard of him.
Of course, you know any cultural references yourself outside of the world or the Semitic. But anyway, that was in the late 60s, early 70s. Very famous song about Woodstock.
Okay.
What happened at Woodstock, the 500,000 people showed up in that whole festival thing. And Joni Mitchell, again very famous, wrote about a song about Woodstock. And inside of that, the refrain was about going back to the garden. And it was, the reference was specifically all those people from connections together were going back to the garden from the former part of the world or the culture.
Yeah.
We're losing that connection of humanity and going back to the garden. We should.
That really is marvelous.
So that's exactly what
it goes along
that
with the
counterculture.
And that's what the Rebbe saw in the counterculture. But I tell you, that wasn't the classic way to view them from a religious perspective. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was, what are we going to do with our kids? Or what are we going to do with this generation? It's like we're falling apart. But everybody said, no, this is amazing. This is great. This is what we were looking for. People who are seeking, people who are going to break the norm, people are going to find the garden.
The community brought together and a change of attitude. That's what that was all about.
Yeah.
Of course, I think it fell apart afterwards, but at least we had it for a while.
And the right intention.
So here we still have it, and it's still going on. And the Chabad world, we're all kind of hippies, in that sense, right? That rebellious sense.
My cousin invited me to go with him to that